Hello, dear students. This is another lesson in a series of video lessons that we have prepared for you for the quarantine break. I hope you're safe and healthy. Today's lesson is the reading class from Unit 9D. In today's lesson, we are going to read a text and we'll try to understand it. It's a text about ethical problems. We will learn how to understand the complex text and how to create notes to help understand it. We'll also look at some new words. First, I want you to look at these four statements. These are the statements about the text. We will read them, and while you read and listen to the text, you will have to try to find the true sentence according to the text. So the text is about two girls who were brought up by wrong families, and there are four sentences that we can see here. A, the parents and children all get on well with each other. B, the children get on better than the parents. C, the parents get on better than the children. And D, none of the people involved get on well. The key word, as you can see, is the word get on well. To get on well means to be friends. I would like to ask you to keep these statements in your head when you are reading the passage, and we will be able to identify the correct answer as soon as we finish reading and listening to it. The passage is called Hospital Mix-Up. We will be reading it together with you now, and we will be listening to it as well.
Lesson 9D, Exercise 2.
Hospital mix-up. Two Russian families are united by a terrible event that took place more than a decade ago. Their newborn daughters were accidentally mixed up in the maternity hospital and grew up with the wrong parents. In a tiny flat in the Ural Mountains, Ulia Belaeva and her 12-year-old daughter Irina are looking through family photos. One of the pictures shows Irina as a newborn baby wrapped in a blanket. It was taken the day mother and daughter left hospital. But 12 years on, Ulia Belaeva has discovered that the baby she'd taken home, the daughter she'd thought she'd given birth to, is not her child. "I found this out when my ex-husband refused to pay maintenance," says Ulia. "I took him to court to prove that he was Irina's father. We did all the DNA tests, but the results were a total surprise. Not only does my ex-husband have no biological link to Irina, neither do I." Police believe that on the 17th of December 1998, there was a terrible mix-up at the local maternity hospital. Two babies were given the wrong name tags and the wrong parents. "At first, I thought it was a joke," recalls Ulia. "Then I couldn't stop crying. My whole world had turned upside down. I kept worrying what Irina would say, and I kept thinking about my real daughter. Maybe she'd been abandoned or put in an orphanage, or perhaps she was begging on the streets." Desperate to find her, Ulia went to the police, and they launched a search for her biological daughter. Within weeks, they had found her. In a village half an hour's drive from Ulia Belaeva's flat lives 12-year-old Anya Iskandarova. In a meadow opposite her house, she shows me her favourite cow, April. Anya is the girl Ulia had given birth to. She is the spitting image of her biological mother. In the house is Naimat Iskandarov, the man Anya thought was her father. Naimat is from Tajikistan. He had married a Russian woman, but they had divorced. It was Naimat who brought up Anya and his other children as devout Muslims. When police told him about the mistake at the maternity hospital and that Anya was not his daughter, to begin with, he refused to believe it. Then the detective showed me a photo of the other girl, Irina, the one they said was my real daughter, Naimat tells me. When I saw her face, it was like seeing myself. My arms and legs began shaking. It was awful to think that my child had grown up with another family and that I had brought up someone else's daughter. The two families meet regularly now, but the parents admit there is tension between them. "It is difficult," concedes Naimat. "One family is Christian, the other is Muslim. We have different traditions. What I fear most is that the daughter I've raised will start going drinking in bars, that she will stop praying and working. I'm worried she will lose her religion. There is tension between the adults, says Ulya. Naimat doesn't like some things that go on in our family. I don't like some things in their home. Both of us are used to life as it has been, not as it is now. Now it is a nightmare. More than anything, Ulya fears that both children will desert her. She can see that the daughter she brought up is keen to spend time now with her biological father. And the child she actually gave birth to is like a stranger. I try to show Anya motherly love, Ulya says, but she doesn't accept it. She's been brought up differently. She's not used to tenderness. We don't really understand each other. When your own daughter looks at you like a stranger, that's so painful. Both families are suing the Kopiesk Maternity Hospital for more than $300,000 in damages. Its chief doctor went on Russian TV to apologize for the mistake, but argued the hospital could not afford to settle such a claim. Prosecutors are considering bringing criminal charges against the hospital staff responsible for the mix-up, although that seems unlikely considering so many years have passed. For now, the two girls say they do not want to swap parents. They are just glad to have found each other. To begin with, we were a bit shy, Irina tells me, but now we've become the best of friends. What I'd like, says Anya, is for all of us to live in one big house. Irina and Anya were born 15 minutes apart. Now the truth about what happened in hospital has brought them together.
Okay, let's take a look at the statements one more time and choose the correct statement. The parents and children all get on well with each other. This is not completely true because remember there's tension between the parents. The children get on better than the parents. This is probably the right answer because both Anya and Irina are happy to have found each other. The parents get on better than the children. This is completely wrong because we've already mentioned that. They have tensions. None of the people involved get on well is also wrong. We remember that children are happy to be with each other. So we will choose B. Now we'll move on to discussion of how we could have organized the notes. First, there's an exam tip that I would like to discuss with you. So we have just heard and read a complex text. When we deal with a complex text, it's a good idea to create some notes to remind you of the key details. And creating these details can be done in any way. One way that we will look into today is creating a diagram. Diagram will be something that will help us to see the relationship between the characters, a sequence of events, or the layout of a place that is being described. In our situation, we will talk about the relationship between the characters. So here we go. This is the diagram that we will be working on together. So we have Yulia, who is a biological mother of one girl, but brought up another girl. Then there is a man who is a biological father of one of the girls, but brought up the other girl. And if we were to complete the gaps, we'll try to complete these gaps together. We'll see the following thing. So Yulia is the biological mother of Anya. Naimat is the biological father of Irina, but he has brought up Anya. Yulia, on the contrary, is the biological mother of Anya, but has brought up Irina. Now the chart is complete and we will be able to use this information to answer specific questions, multiple choice questions that follow our text. So let's take a look at the first question. Yulia only found out that Irina was not her biological daughter. A, when they looked at some family photos. B, when they got home from hospital. C, after 12 years. And D, after 10 years. If we were to go back to the text, which we will not be able to do now, but I remember the text mentioning it, that when she was 12 years old, when Irina was 12 years old, Yulia found out that she was not her biological daughter. So that is why the correct answer is C. Let's move on to the second question. Yulia's family had DNA tests in order to confirm who Irina's father was, whether Yulia was Irina's mother, whether there had been a mix up at the hospital, whether a family member had committed a crime. Now, we know that the DNA tests were given because Yulia wanted to confirm that Irina's father was her father so that he would pay the maintenance. That is why the correct answer is A. You remember that her biological, oh, not biological father, Yulia's husband, who, well, they thought was Irina's father, refused to pay maintenance to her. That's why Yulia decided to have some DNA tests to prove his fatherhood and finally discovered that he wasn't her biological father. When Yulia found out about the mistake, what did she do? She felt very upset and worried. She thought it was funny at first. She tried not to think about it too much, and she was not very surprised. Obviously, the correct answer is A. She felt very upset and worried. Well, when you find out about this crucial mistake in your life, you cannot feel it's funny, and the only thing to feel is to be upset and worried. This is probably the correct answer. So it's A. Question number 4. Anya, Yulia's biological daughter, lives with her biological mother's ex-husband, her biological father, Irina's biological father, her biological parents. Now, this question looks like a complicated question, but if we remember the chart that we created just before we started answering the questions, we will remember that there is only one person in the story who is a father. It's Naimat, and Naimat is Irina's biological father, but Anya lives with him. So automatically the correct answer is C. Let's move on to question number 5. Naimat is worried about something. What is he worried about? That Anya will reject her Muslim traditions, that Anya will want to live with her biological mother, that Irina will want to come and live with him, and that Irina will not want to become a Muslim. Obviously, the thing that comes to mind is that Naimat must be worried about how Anya will try to integrate into her Russian family and hence will reject her Muslim traditions. So I think the correct answer is A. Let's move on to question number 6 now. Yulia is particularly worried. Now, just like Naimat, Yulia is worrying about her daughters, her biological daughter, and the daughter that she has brought up. What is she worried about? That Irina will convert to Islam, that Irina will have terrible nightmares, that Naimat won't approve of her family, or that neither Anya nor Irina will want to live with her. Again, if we go back to the text, we'll be able to see that Yulia is worried that no girl will actually stay with her. That's why the correct answer is D. And the last question for this exercise, what Anya would like best. So now we are asked about Anya's opinion. She would like to go and live with Irina and Naimat. She would like to get money from the hospital. She would like to prove that the hospital is guilty of a crime, or she would like to live with Yulia, Anya, and Naimat. As we remember in the very end of the story, Anya says that she would like everything to stay the same, but at the same time for everyone to live together. For this reason, we will choose D. Anya would like best to live with Yulia, Anya, and Naimat. Now we have answered the comprehension questions for this text, and we'll move on to the second part of the task, which is working on vocabulary. Here I have got 10 sentences, and we will try to understand the meaning of each sentence briefly. So, number 1. Two Russian families are united by a terrible event. The terrible event is a mix-up, as you remember, and if you are united by a terrible event, it means the terrible event has united you. Number 2. My ex-husband refused to pay maintenance. We have already mentioned this sentence before when we said Yulia wanted to go to court. Yes, that's because he refused to pay maintenance, the money that you pay for your child's bringing up if you're not living with the family. Number 3, I took him to court to prove that he was Irina's father. So, what does it mean to take somebody to court? It means to sue a person, that is, to apply to legal procedures to have the person prosecuted for not fulfilling his or her responsibilities, in this case, paying maintenance. Number 4, my whole world had turned upside down. Now let's imagine this picture. One day you wake up and you understand your mom is not your mom anymore. Your dad is not your dad anymore. Of course, your whole world turns upside down. Number 5, she is the spitting image of her biological mother. The spitting image is idiom, which means she looks absolutely like her biological mother. Another expression would be she's a carbon copy of her biological mother. So the spitting image means look similar to somebody. But the parents admit there is tension between them. Again, we remember this expression. When there is tension between people, they tend to have difficulty understanding each other. They don't want to interact with each other. There is tension between them. Number 7 is a very easy expression to understand. It is a nightmare. We usually see nightmares at night when we're sleeping and we're afraid of those. If your life becomes a nightmare, it means you have a hard life. Number 8, she's not used to tenderness. Now, to show tenderness means to cuddle a child, to hug him or her. And when Ani is not used to tenderness, it's because probably she lives in an Asian family where showing tenderness to a child is not a particular habit. So, not being used to tenderness means not being used to being cuddled. Both families are suing the Kopeisk Maternity Hospital for more than 300,000 in damages. Now remember, Yulia was suing her husband for refusing to pay the maintenance. Now both families are suing the hospital because there's been moral damage to both families caused by the mix-up. And the last sentence, the hospital could not afford to settle such a claim. To settle such a claim means to pay the money. $300,000 is the money that the families want for the moral damage that was caused to them, the psychological damage of having a wrong child living in your family. So the hospital cannot afford to pay out this money to the parents and the children. So we have finished working on both exercises, the note-taking exercise and the vocabulary exercise. Let's sum up our lesson. If you want to understand a complex text, try to create a diagram. If you want to understand the words that you do not really know, you can use context. Thank you very much for your time. Enjoy your lesson. Goodbye.